Well, I guess we'll talk about last week, and maybe this week, and drink beer in the daytime. Cheers. Welcome back, everybody, to me doing weekly Navel-Gazing, the thing where I talk about all the books I read last week, all the books I plan to read this week, all the videos I didn't make last week, and all the videos I plan to not make this week. Sort of, kinda. And then it all descends into rambling. And yeah, let's get started and talk about books I read last week, because I did, in fact, read a couple of books. So what did I read? I did read Feminist Theory from Margin to Center by Bell Hooks last week. I think I mentioned that in last week's update already, but that was my Monday read last week. And then I did read Blood and Mistletoe, The History of the Druids in Britain by Ronald Hutton, which is a really good book. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot about druids, and about, well, British people being British, which is even more interesting, I guess. So what else did I read? I did read Know My Name by Chanel Miller, which is an excellent book. You should read it if you can stand the topic, which is, of course, sexual assault, and battling it in court in a system that is not necessarily very helpful to the survivors and victims of sexual violence. Because, you know, that's kind of the society we have built ourselves, which is called, well, it's a patriarchy, isn't it? Anyway, so I read that one. Highly recommend it. I will probably make a video about it at some point. Then I did read Living a Feminist Life by Sara Ahmed, which is also a really good book. I have read a number of Sara Ahmed's books by now, and they are all good. However, I think at this point they become somewhat repetitive. At least these basic books. I still have to read Queer Phenomenology, and I will see if that one adds interesting new sort of dimensions. But beyond that, yeah, good book. Highly recommend it if you haven't read any Sara Ahmed yet. It's a good starting point, I guess. The Feminist Killjoy Handbook is another one that I would recommend in that regard. And then I did read, of course, Shadow Captain by Alistair Reynolds, which is the second book in the Revenger trilogy. And then I read Bone Silence, which is the third book in the Revenger trilogy. And then I did start, and I'm sure I'll be done with it by the time the video is finally rendered and up for you to watch, Terrible Revolutions, Latter-day Saints and American Apocalypticism, which is, well, a book about Mormons and the apocalypse, which certainly, you know, helpful to read, I think. So that's all I read last week. So what about this week? And what am I planning to read this week? Well, you may notice that I have mentioned a Mormon book, which, yeah, I guess I'll go back to the Mormon stuff for reasons. And yeah, so I guess some of the books that I'll plan to read this week will probably be rereads of stuff I read for, like, the larger Mormonism project, just to get my brain back into that. And then there are, of course, you know, other books that will hopefully show up in my reading list, sort of, at some point. I have some essays by Audre Lorde lying around that I want to read, so that stuff is the plan for this week. If there are other things that I really, really should read, you can always, you know, let me know in the comments, and sometimes I'll listen to those comments and then even read the books that you recommend. It has happened before, is what I'm saying. So yeah, reading-wise, I guess I'm on a good way. Let's talk about videos and all of that stuff. I did make one video. I did make a video for Shadow Captain, the second book in the Revenger trilogy, and thus the penultimate video for Pirate Winter, which came out on Saturday. I recorded it on Friday, and then I failed to upload it because I was away and traveling, and uploading videos from my phone doesn't always work. The YouTube Studio app is somewhat broken, I would argue. So that is something that happened. So the video is up since Saturday. It is, well, I think it's a solid video about a solid book. And then I wanted to record a video for Bone Silence yesterday, but what with the election and all the other stuff, I did not get around to recording it because, well, you know, as I've mentioned before, recording pirate videos on my balcony leads to the problem that, you know, if, you know, the weather doesn't work out or other external things happen, I can't necessarily record. Daylight being another issue there, right? So I'll try my best to record it today, and then Pirate Winter will be over. So yeah, and then I did, of course, the Saturday live stream, the monthly Marxist Malcontent live stream, which went for fucking hours, so I guess that makes up for all the videos that I didn't make. And of course, we did the breakfast sprints all week. So, yeah, not good, but not bad either, I would argue. What about videos this week? Well, I will, of course, finish the Pirate Winter one with Bone Silence, which is, well, hopefully I'll record it today. I kind of have to, because, you know, the whole idea of Pirate Winter is me having, well, not having that tooth, and that is going to change tomorrow. So, yeah, I'd better record it today or tomorrow very early in the morning. We'll find out. Beyond that, I am going to go back and work on the Mormonism video. Yes! Because, you know, if, you know, the whole dentist thing works out tomorrow, I'll have a tooth again, and then I'll feel more comfortable or confident in talking about a serious topic like, you know, Mormonism. Not that piracy isn't, like, a really serious topic, don't get me wrong, it is. But, you know, so I'm going back and trying to figure out how to do the Mormonism video and hopefully record it in the next couple of days. It will certainly take a while, right? It's not something that will just happen in one evening and then we're done. So that is going to happen throughout the week. Can't promise that it will be up next week. We'll find out. There are obviously other videos that I could make and will make. I'm thinking about making a video for Know My Name by Chanel Miller. I do highly recommend reading that book anyway, but I'll try and do my best to make a video on that one. We'll see what else comes up. If you have, you know, questions, requests, or whatever for me to do a video, unless you're asking for a list. I don't do lists, all right? Then you can always, you know, write that down in the comments, right? And I'll maybe listen to it and maybe I'll do something if there's a specific book or topic or whatever you want me to talk about. That can happen. So, yeah, Mormonism video is the long-term project. Bone Silence will happen this week. And probably something on Know My Name by Chanel Miller. Possibly other books and videos, other books that I will read or have read, and we'll see where that goes. So, yeah, I think plans are being made is what I'm saying. And I might try to figure out what to do in addition to that, because I'll be traveling next week. So if I were a smart person, I would, of course, you know, pre-record some videos. So there will be some content while I am in Athens, in Greece, one of the best, one of my favorite cities in the world. So that's happening next week. So, you know, we'll see. Yeah. Let's talk about some of the other stuff and descend into rambling, as I always say. And there are, these things are sort of vaguely connected, right? I already mentioned that I wanted to make a video on Know My Name. See, here's the thing. We all know that, you know, stuff happened on BookTube for the last 2 weeks in all kinds of ways, and a lot of people have made videos on it. I have not, for a number of reasons. I have not made a video on it. One of those reasons being that I don't feel confident in, you know, addressing anything, you know, important about it that other people couldn't say better or have, like, more, you know, experience or whatever. And I don't want to be just another man talking about, talking over women, talking about women and so forth. That's not something I want to do. And I'm still thinking about making a, you know, video on that subject in the future, you know, more like as a post-mortem to the entire sort of like discussion of how BookTube handled the situation, which I think BookTube failed. And the reason why I think BookTube failed is, of course, that, yeah, basically booktubers decided to really reinforce the patriarchy, reinforce sexism, and reinforce you know, I guess you know, all those parts of what you might call rape culture that are bad. So yeah, I think there's room to talk about important things, but I'm gonna wait until, you know, I have more of an argument there. What I have decided, however, to do is you know, obviously speak about it in streams, which I did on Saturday. You know, when someone asks me a direct question, I will obviously always answer that. But also try to figure out what to do, because clearly BookTube, or these parts of BookTube, those being adult fantasy BookTube, for example, has a lot to learn when it comes to, you know, feminism, when it comes to, you know, sexual assault, how to deal with those kind of things. We need to do better. And one of the ways I think I can hopefully do something in this regard is by making videos on books that, you know, I think should be read. Because if you read those books and, like, really read them and think about them even afterwards, you may learn a thing or two and understand a bit more about, the situation that we are in, and, what the world being pretty fucked up at the moment, and women's rights being actively targeted when it comes to abortion and all these kind of things in the US, but not only there. I think knowing a bit more about, feminist struggles, knowing a bit more about all of these things is a good, generally a good plan. So that's why I will make a video on, say, Know My Name, and there are other books on those subjects that I will read, and then I will talk about them, and hopefully this will just lead to some people learning a bit more, thinking a bit more, and maybe making the world a slightly better place. For now, that's my plan in that regard. Now, obviously, that is something that comes with, all kinds of drawbacks. I'm still a dude who doesn't necessarily know that much about feminism or anything of the sort, right? I'm learning, is what I'm saying. And I'm going to sort of use my plans of doing better, of knowing more and so forth. I'm going to use that to talk to you about it. I expect that will get some backlash, which is sort of like the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is, of course, the live stream on Saturday, where some things happened that were really, really fucked up, by which I mean someone joined the chat and spread a lot of anti-Semitic, well, not even dog whistles, but like full-on anti-Semitic hate speech, basically. And that is obviously bad, and I don't tolerate that anywhere. I have reported comments on my videos that included anti-Semitic dog whistles in the past. I'll always report those kind of comments as hate speech, so don't do that. First of all, don't be an anti-Semite, all right? And secondly, don't write anti-Semitic comments, right? So that happened, and it made me very uncomfortable. Because, well, I've always, we've had people show up in chats before and be at least somewhat trollish or so and so forth, but nothing on this level, which either is active trolling or, just, well, someone sincerely believing those kind of things and trying to spread an idea. And then both of those are bad options. Now, the question is that something that I sort of courted by, calling the stream, titling the stream monthly Marxist malcontent? There are certainly people who get triggered by the word Marxist in all kinds of ways. Or is it something that has to do with the whole, like, Naomi King, Daniel Green situation, where a lot of right-wing grifters have certainly discovered BookTube as another place to sort of peddle their specific ideas of cultural criticism, which is a gateway into far-right and right-wing ideology for those kind of people. So is it me that actively, drew that person to my stream, or is it something that just more of those kind of people suddenly hang out on BookTube? I don't know. I think both are options, and we'll see what the future holds there. My point, however, is that one thing that made me really uncomfortable in that situation for me, and once again, if you watch the stream, I apologize for that situation, was my inability to handle that. See, I don't always talk about accessibility in a lot of ways, and don't necessarily talk that much about disability in videos, because not the kind of content I'm making. I don't want to make this a channel about, like, here's life as a blind guy, as brought to you by me. So I don't want to do that. But one thing that is, of course, there is that as someone with a disability, in this case being blind, I do very much have, problems when it comes to doing content creation. Sometimes I've mentioned that before, I can't edit videos. I mean, I can do some minor editing, but it's very, very difficult because, videos are a visual medium, and the tools that most people use for editing are visual tools. And if you ever try to cut out a bit out of a video, and you just click on bits and pieces on a timeline and then drop those things, it don't work if you can't see, right? So, for example, that makes editing very difficult for me. As I said, I've done it in the past. I sometimes do some minor editing, but it's not much. The same goes, of course, to when it comes to live streams. And if more people show up in live streams and misbehave, ideally you have to moderate, you have to ban people, you have to do all of those kind of things, and that is kind of difficult. On the one hand, you have to do that on the fly, while obviously talking, while listening to my screen reader and so forth, which is already tough. And then, of course, sort of like integration of a screen reader and a web browser is not necessarily always perfect. It changes every time, YouTube makes some updates on its website. It changes every time the browser gets an update in one way or another. It changes from browser to browser. I've spoken about this before when it came to me not being able to comment on YouTube videos because for whatever reason it didn't work. It's a screen reader issue. Turns out that also works is a problem with moderating, a chat. Because, I can't just necessarily click on something with a mouse because, it doesn't work like that. And if the screen reader doesn't engage, then suddenly I'm unable to do that. Now, to make this sort of like a larger point before we, end the whole thing, right? We solved it. I designated a moderator who did a fantastic job of, getting rid of that one person. And I think after that, everything was basically good. But what it showed me at the time is that even though I do really enjoy, doing YouTube things, and I enjoy talking in front of a camera and to you, whether it is in a live stream, which I generally do really enjoy, or whether it is in videos, I also do enjoy that. But there is always that threat that something will come up that I won't be able to handle because of a disability. And it's these sort of like hard intrusions of reality of a system that is fundamentally not accessible or excludes or marginalizes me in that regard. Not necessarily, on purpose in, a vindictive, purposeful way, but just because by virtue of being marginalized, you're not the main focus group of people building YouTube platforms, right? And those kind of hard intrusions, I think, they can be scary. They can be frustrating. They're like, well, should I maybe stop doing this? Which I won't, but let's just say there were moments during that live stream, like while the thing was going on, where I was pretty close to just like ending the stream and stopping this because, yeah, it made me feel incredibly helpless, is what I'm saying. And maybe not a good thing to just say all of that out loud on a video where potentially, people will read that, watch this, and then decide to actively, troll me or attack me or whatever. But, I try to be honest, is what I'm saying. And I think to bring this all back, it's a very different experience from, being a survivor of sexual violence and having to go through a system that is fundamentally against you, especially if you are, femme presenting in any way or form. But it does sort of show the fact that it is another situation where, by virtue of being marginalized in one specific way, I come up against a system that does actively, make things harder for me or make things worse for me and makes me feel helpless. And, I'm not actively comparing it to the experience of being a woman and having to, fight in court about something, in court or anywhere else about sexual assault allegations or anything of the sort. But I think it's, once again, it's people who are marginalized in one way or another being confronted by a system that is fundamentally built against them and rigged against them. And that's sort of like one thing I wanted to sort of point out as a larger thing, because BookTube did very much act very misogynistic in the last 2 weeks. Fundamentally, not necessarily by people being actively, misogynist, but like by acting out certain patterns. And that is something that I think I want to look at in general. I mean, I try to do that with most videos, to look at sort of like systemic issues behind things and so forth. But I just wanted to bring this up because on the one hand, yeah, it was a big thing happening during that live stream that really fucked me up. And these Monday Navel-Gazings are all about me talking about how fucked up I am. But I also wanted to sort of like tie this back to the sort of like my approach or idea of making videos on, maybe some feminist theory, but also on, books that are memoirs or accounts by survivors and by victims of sexual assault or other violence, sexual violence and domestic violence and so forth. By sharing these experiences, we can maybe at least raise some sort of awareness of said systemic sort of like marginalizations that a lot of us are suffering under for all kinds of reasons, whether it's race, gender, disability, all kinds of other stuff, class, of course, as well. And that's sort of like what I wanted to sort of how to tie these things back together. So yeah, that was a lot of rambling right now, but that's what you come for, I presume, at least. Yeah. So let's end this. I'm gonna go and record a video about pirates in space, and you hopefully go and read some cool books and Hopefully you have read some good books last week, and yeah, why not tell me about all of that down in the comments. Let me know what you did last week, how you enjoyed your life last week. Yeah. See, I managed to not say anything about the elections either. Really good, right? Let's talk more in the coming days, and yeah, thanks for watching, I guess. Like, subscribe, comment, join the Patreon, join the YouTube channel, do any of those things, and other things, and yeah, I'll talk to you very soon, and until then, thanks and cheers.